So all week heading into this game, I've been saying that this is the moment. This is the moment of truth. This is the catalyst that will determine the rest of the season. This is where we find out what this team really is. And guess what? It's shit. This is the team that we saw in the first week against the Packers, the second week against the Colts, that final drive against the Titans. Um, the second the 2 minutes during the third quarter against the Seahawks, and the Texans game is just a mirage. This is who this team is. This is a dog shit, uncompetitive, poorly coached football team that cannot win games. Kirk Cousins is garbage, and I apologize to all the defenders of his. He has to go. I don't care what his contract says. I don't care how much dead money we would incur from getting rid of him. He is worthless. Mike Zimmer should be fired. Um, and I'm going to say that going forward. This is it. Season's over. They're 1-5. I mean, put a fork in them. They're done. The Lions won today. The Bears won today. The Packers will probably win today. It's over. We're on to the draft already, and it's the end of week 6, and we're on to the draft. Um, and you're going to hear a lot of people say, "Oh, it's not Mike Zimmer's fault." When is it going to be? Because this is another losing season under him. We haven't had back-to-back winning seasons since all the way back to Brad Childress. Think about that. It's been since Brad Childress was the head coach of this football team has the Vikings had back-to-back winning seasons. This team is not good, as I've said before. It doesn't matter if Drew Samia plays right guard or not. It doesn't matter who plays right guard at this point because everything is trash. The offensive line is the weakest spot, yes, but everything else is complete horseshit. The only real good signs that we have of the future are Irv Smith Jr. and Justin Jefferson. Dalvin Cook not being on the field makes a significant difference despite all of the hype that they talked up about Alexander Madison all week. But it also doesn't help when you dig yourself into an immediate hole in the first quarter, down 10-0, and then you have to reconsider your game plan. Kirk Cousins is the problem, and people need to get over it. I'm sorry, he's just not good. He's been in the league for 9 years. This is who he is. He's not going to get better. He's not going to elevate the talent around him. And I saw people were like, the second half, after he threw 3 interceptions in the first half, people were saying he should be benched, and everybody was like, well, who are you going to put in there, Sean Mannion? Why the fuck not? Why not put Sean Mannion in? How worse could it get with him? This is also Rick Spielman's fault, who is another person who should be fired for this travesty because he has miscalculated what he's needed on this team and instead thrown all these huge, rich contracts at veterans instead of building through the draft. Yeah, he had 15 draft picks. Oh boy, Cam Dantzler's the best one other than Justin Jefferson. Jeff Gladney is, he doesn't look like a first round pick. It's ridiculous that Cam Dantzler is the cornerback one on this team. But the fact that they have chosen to ignore the offensive line for 4 or 5 years now, they haven't addressed the quarterback situation in any significant, meaningful way. I mean, a lot of people are going to point to the 10-6 season last year, but don't forget that first season under Cousins was 8-7-1. This guy is, I don't remember what the exact number is, but I believe he's now negative as terms of win losses in a Vikings uniform. I think he's probably 19-20-1 right now. 84 million guaranteed plus an extension doesn't buy you wins. He's not good. The only reason he got the contract that he did was because he made it to free agency. If Dak Prescott would have made it to free agency this year instead of the franchise tag, he would have doubled that contract total and probably doubled that guaranteed money. So this is it. It's over. The bye week is next week. We'll probably find some way to lose that somehow because it's Vikings football and it's Minnesota sports and they're just god awful. You may think that I'm overreacting to this, but what other reaction could there be? Everything is atrocious. I mean, Adam Thielen played good. Justin Jefferson is a bright shining star, and it's good that he's going to develop this year into something that we're going to need in the future. But changes have to happen now. There are teams that are already, getting ready to look at the next draft. I mean, the Jets, the Giants, the Washington football team, they're evaluating what they have in terms of a roster right this second. That is why Kyle Allen is playing quarterback for the Washington football team. I don't think it's a knee-jerk reaction or an overreaction at the end of week 6 to be calling for people's heads. Somebody has to be held accountable for this. The Falcons were 0-5 heading into this week. They were a hapless team. They've been the meme of the first half of the season, and they have an interim head coach, and you let them come into your stadium and blow the roof off of it and embarrass you off the field. No, this cannot stand. And even if Zimmer is fired, people are like, oh, well, who's it going to be? Who else on the coaching staff can take over? Put Gary Kubiak in there for however many weeks it is, and then fire him at the end of the season. Who cares? Um, so yeah, it sounds like I'm complaining a lot, which I am, but at the same time, I think that this is probably one of the few spaces on the internet where you're going to hear this criticism. I'm not afraid to criticize these guys for being downright atrocious. You know, a lot of people are probably going to make excuses for Cousins and Zimmer. Those excuses have run out. I'm sorry. When you lose to an 0-5 team, the only way that this could have been worse had it been against the Jets. And then I think if had it been against the Jets, then I think more people would be on board with the current stances that I'm taking. So yeah, that's going to be it. So this is going to be just a miserable rest of the season. And as I predicted in the 0-2 video that I did a couple weeks back, if you go back and look through that, it was I believe I titled it "The Rest of the Season Feels Doomed." That prediction is both coming true, and I think I only projected at least 3 or 4 wins the rest of the way. And it looks like if they play like they did today, it's probably going to happen. So, you know, there is still the trade deadline. We could get one of the quarterbacks. I mean, it's a terrible idea to get a quarterback in the middle of the season and expect him to do anything a la the Josh Freeman game. But I don't know. Something has to change because this is just a garbage product. So, so I am full in on the tank mode. I don't want to win any more games this year. There's absolutely no point. To even sniff the playoffs, they would have to run the table, and at you know, at 11-5, they probably would get in. But there's just no way this team is not talented enough and it's not coached properly to be able to pull off even an X number of wins. You know, like I'll be amazed if we get 5. After the bye week, we go straight to Lambeau Field, where we're probably going to get smoked by Aaron Rodgers and company. So that doesn't, you know, the rest of the schedule is just brutal, and there's no ifs and or buts about it. Even games that on paper a couple weeks ago that looked favorable against the Lions and the Bears now look like they're, you know, real toss-ups, especially against Chicago, who is fucking 5-1 somehow with Nick Foles. So I'm out of excuses. I'm done giving excuses. Mike Zimmer should be fired. Kirk Cousins should be benched and cut or traded at the end of the season. I know the contract. I know. I don't care. Whatever we can to do to alleviate that contract, do it. Money isn't real. The salary cap is a myth. There's other teams that are making all of these different moves and signings and big time contract extensions, and it's under the cap and it's fine. You know, the Chiefs did it, a whole bunch of different moves this offseason to make it work, and they're fine. So I don't want to hear this talk about the salary cap. The salary cap is just, you know, it's an excuse for people who are lazy and don't want to have any real convictions. Mike Zimmer should probably definitely be fired. They probably won't do it because they're a bunch of cowards. But I don't, at this point, you know, you gave up 40 points to the Atlanta Falcons on an interim head coaching week, and you give them their first win of the season. It's inexcusable at this point. This team was supposed to be competitive this year. Let's not forget that going into the season. You know, they said that what they did in the draft and free agency was going to be enough to make it work, and it clearly hasn't. So that needs to change. The quarterback needs to change. I am full-fledged in tank for Trevor mode. I'd be happy with Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. Trey Lance would be a nice, you know, consolation prize. But I think at this point, after the games are over today, we're going to be in the position to have a top 5 pick. So we're definitely in Justin Fields territory now. So that's going to do it for this video. We'll talk about it more tomorrow. I'll see you in the next one.